Yes, guys, you know what time it is. It's your boy Jack here with Stats for Jack, another pre recorded version of it for the upcoming Leicester game. But let's get this party started. While you're in here, though, do hit that like button since you're already in here for this one. Doing the cold hard facts. Since their return to the Premier League in 2014, Leicester have conceded more to Spurs than any other team. It's actually also the other way around. Spurs have, I believe, scored more goals against Leicester since 2014 than any other team in the Premier League. Steven Bergwijn's winners broke the record for the latest team a team was losing in a Premier League match until eventually winning it. Steven Bergwijn basically broke a record in terms of a team that was going into a match losing and then eventually coming out into the winners. I think we were still losing the match in like the 89th or the 90th minute. Honestly, that is a great record broken by Mr. Stevie B. Spurs have lost 5 home matches this season. If we finish with 6 losses, that would be 2 consecutive seasons of 6 home defeats, which ultimately means the last time that we did that was in 2003 through 2005. You think about all the really poor seasons before that we've had in the past under AVB and whatnot. Still, we didn't have 6 home defeats. This is the first time. So you could say that it was less of a fortress under Nuno. It's been made more of a fortress, the home, ground under Conte, but that would be an interesting thing to repeat. And I think that is fascinating that the last time we were able to repeat that was so long ago as well. But pretty damning cold fact right there. But let's move on to head to head. All time record versus Leicester City 59 wins, 21 drawn, 37 lost. Last 5 fixtures. We did win the last 2 away from home, but at home, it's not really been too great for us. We've actually, in fact, lost 2-0 at home. That was under the Jose days, and then we also lost a game 2-1 at home as well. So kind of look at it. Um, they're not really been the best team for us. In fact, this season, actually, I think that 2-1, sorry, was away from home, but I think there is some sort of record or stat out there that we actually haven't been too great against Leicester this season. At home, we've actually almost been better against them away from home. Conte's record versus Leicester City: 6 wins, 1 draw, and 0 loss. So he's actually been very, very consistent against Leicester City. Conte's record versus Rodgers, the last time we came up against them, that was his first match ever against Brendan Rodgers. They happened to avoid each other somehow. While Brendan Rodgers was at Liverpool, Conte was in Italy. Then when Conte came to England, Brendan Rodgers left off to Scotland. So they somehow have avoided each other until now. Rodgers' record versus Spurs: 7 wins, 1 draw, and 6 defeats. So he has a lot of history against Spurs, and that could come into play here because I feel like he's had more experience maybe than the last few managers that we come up against. And those last few managers, I guess, also have done quite well against us, to be fair. But he definitely has a good history against us, Brendan Rodgers, that's for sure. But let's move on to Leicester's predicted lineup. This was so hard to do because are they going to be resting players for the upcoming match? Everybody, do let me know. I mean, what do you think? Like, they have to rest a few unless they don't rest any. Maybe they're just ready for that. Maybe they, have been pushing for this. But I imagine that with the likes of Tielemans, James Madison, Dewsbury-Hall, they all played 90 full minutes against the likes of Roma. And I would imagine that some of them would sit. I mean, maybe just one of them sits. That's what I guess I've gone for. I think they would go for a defensive midfielder. Last time against Roma, they went with all 3 of those players in the midfield, kind of, went without the defensive midfielder. Imagine this time they will do that, especially since it is the Premier League and they are going to maybe be challenged a bit more considering that, we are actually the home team. So I imagine they'll go for Mendy. They could go for Sumare as well. He's kind of coming back into the team, but he hasn't really had the best first season for them. But I think he's probably adjusting. He also just hasn't been used very well by Brendan Rodgers, if I'm being honest. Wilfred Ndidi, I think he's out for the rest of the season as well. So if they were to go for a defensive midfielder, I could see them going with Nepalese Mendy. Luke Thomas could come in for the likes of Castagna, who I think is also, I think since the last game in the Europa Conference League, is out for the rest of the season. So he would come in, but James Justin could go there. But I would imagine that Luke Thomas just would come in just so that they don't risk James Justin any further. I also have Soyuncu coming in for Fofana because Fofana, I would imagine they wouldn't want to risk. Or Johnny Evans maybe comes in and then they do Soyuncu and Fofana. I just feel like they can't risk either of them. So a lot of players, a lot of switching out, a lot of new players coming in. I could imagine. So that's also why Patson Daka comes in because Jamie Vardy just hasn't been used as much, I believe, in the Premier League this season as much as Patson Daka has. So I would imagine it's a really tough team to predict. But do let me know which one Leicester go with, because I feel like that defensive midfielder certainly is going to be in there, but it's hard to know. It's hard to pick. Dewsbury-Hall, the unsung hero. I do kind of have the benefit now of kind of looking at the whole season. So this is why I've gone for Dewsbury-Hall. I feel like he's kind of that new addition into the team that has really, really helped them. I know they haven't had the best of seasons, but whenever I've watched them, he's looked kind of like the best player in a lot of games. So I would imagine he's been kind of that unsung hero for a lot of Leicester fans. I kind of look at it through the perspective of the opposition fan base, and I would imagine they might pick him as sort of the unsung hero of the season. Key passes, and also just quickly before even in context, like to look at these stats, if you think about it in context, he's actually only played like 16, 17, something full 90s this season, whereas the likes of I believe Tielemans, Madison have all played like more than 22 full 90s. So these stats are really quite damning when you really look at it. And the fact that he's climbed this high in terms of the squad rankings of some of these stats while playing not nearly as many minutes as the rest of his teammates, it's a really, kind of indication of maybe him being that unsung hero. Key passes completed, third in the entire squad. Progressive passes completed, third. Passes into the final third, he's second. Passes completed under pressure, he's second. Shot creating actions, he's third. Carries into the final third, he's second. He's a really good ball carrier, and he's clearly been one of the best creators for this team. And I think he's probably someone that would still have a good game against us and definitely should be considered as a threat. Has definitely been kind of that tempo setter alongside Tielemans. They've been looking for someone to do that and maybe help out Tielemans. Perhaps they almost found a Tielemans replacement sort of in Dewsbury-Hall. Could he be a Tielemans replacement? I don't know. Like, it's tough to say, but he certainly has helped out a lot in in terms of the creative elements of the game. But let's move on to James Madison as the key player. Not a big surprise there because he has the most goal contributions. He has the most goal creating actions, most shot creating actions, most through balls, most passes completed into the penalty area, most shots on target. It's just been their best player, I would say, this season. If I really look at it, I don't know. I think with Tielemans, with James Madison, it's just been one of the better players this season. He's actually been more consistent, you could say, this season than in other ones. I feel like he kind of had a bit of a worry, with how inconsistent he was. Certainly, he's kind of proven his worth this season. The fact that he's only had 13 goal contributions, though, not very many when you look at it, like compared to the likes of what maybe we have over on our squad. I mean, Kulusevski is getting close to that, when you look at it. So not as many when you really, think about it. But I would still say by far their best player. And any sort of chance that will be created will probably likely come through the likes of Madison or possibly Tillemans. It's going to come through one of them, and certainly look at Madison as their big threat. But let's move on to how do Leicester attack, and these are going to be the animations. Everybody, I do hope you enjoy these. I feel like the animations are going to be a bit longer this time because I've included ones from past. So we'll kind of blaze through them a bit. But this kind of has to do with Patson Daka's pace and movement. It's not really a big surprise here. He kind of offers similar things to what Jamie Vardy does in terms of the movement, in terms of the pace, in terms of the work rate. Nowhere near as like tenacious as I would say Vardy is, but definitely offers a lot of the same work rate and kind of running into the spaces and behind and being able to kind of cause defenders a lot of panic because of the areas that he'll pick up the ball. He'll just run into the spaces that defenders aren't, and he'll just always be that threat that we have to be wary of. And this is certainly one of the ones that I'd look at is like that James Madison through ball. Certainly is one of the ones that Pads and Daka will be a big threat through. But let's go to an old one, the old days of stats with Jack. Let me know what you think of this one, guys, because this one I definitely put in a bit more work into. I mean, broke down even where that run came from and like slotting in his teammate Madison. Really like this this old animation of the Leicester City attack. But yeah, there you are. I don't really know what to say, to be honest. It's kind of funny to see the old stats with Jax. It's kind of crazy how many videos we've made of these kind of little animations. Almost too many, actually. It's like little minions out there. Madison outside the box, kind of like Christian Eriksen from the last match, just a huge threat. I feel like outside that penalty area, he can hit that pass, into the back post, or he can slide a ball through. He can hit it from 30 yards. He can, curl it in right outside the penalty area. It's just dangerous. That's really all it is. And in this one, it's just kind of Madison. He picks up the ball in this deep lying area. Goes for this kind of pass into Harvey Barnes. It's cleared by Emerson, and then it just finds it back to Madison at the top of the 18, and he just punishes us with kind of a nice goal outside the penalty area, and he can hit it from anywhere, and he's just someone that you really have to look out for. I feel like this is not a big surprise to talk about him being kind of scoring a goal outside the penalty area. Let's go on to his other threat that we did from as well the last time we did this show, bit more link up play. But this is kind of what I meant by that back post sort of threat. And, I was able to do that in the last time we did the Stats with Jack show, where I feel like what maybe James Madison does, apart from maybe those 30-yard, 40-yard beautiful screamers, is that sort of, deep lying, kind of curling ball into sort of the back post that always ends up causing a lot of trouble to teams. So could easily see him doing that against Spurs tomorrow if they were to have a good game. Last one here, Barnes one-on-one against Emerson. Emerson, I mean, I've lost all confidence with him defensively at this stage. I thought he was a good defender when he first came into this club. He actually had really good defensive numbers. And I've just lost all confidence with him. So him coming up against Harvey Barnes, who's an extraordinarily good dribbler, I could see him having a lot of trouble. So that's all this is. It's just Harvey Barnes, kind of taking on Emerson, losing him with a bit of space, coming up against him one-on-one, gets by him, then just puts, kind of a ball across the six there. Lloris or no one else can deal with it. Just gets put in. I think it's a brutal way to look at it. Just Emerson one-on-one against Harvey Barnes makes me nervous. Let's look at the old one. I think this one is a combination of Emerson and Tanganga coming up against Harvey Barnes. Looks to be a bit of a similar principle here. Yeah, draws the defenders, is able to then just, draw a bit more attention, finds the likes of Tielemans making that late run in. Not a big surprise either. But he didn't have. I guess he came off the bench. I think he came on, and Adama Lookman was the one playing over there. Didn't have as good of a game, but when Harvey Barnes came on, he had an instant impact. So it could be Adama Lookman going out there. It's just anybody one-on-one with Emerson. I'm just going to have, a bit of worries about. But let's move on to how do Leicester defend. I feel like Leicester, they're not that good of a defense, to be honest. Like when you really look at it, like they conceded a lot of goals from set pieces. Schmeichel hasn't really had the best of seasons. They really haven't had their best back four available to them the whole season, so it's hard to judge how good they'll be with this, kind of refreshed back four of the players that they trust a bit more. But with the Roma game coming up, will they go with their best back four? They could, and they would, stifle us a bit more. But that back four, has it even been that spectacular compared to the ones maybe we've come up more recently? Not really, to be fair. Like I feel like Leicester City's still in the position that they are. They've actually miraculously found a way to be in the position they are, but they've conceded a lot of goals. And it kind of just comes from, I think, Brendan Rodgers not really being the best sort of defensive manager, and maybe being a bit better with in terms of the progressive attacking play. So you could say Leicester City, they're just a team that will, scratch out a 1-0 one game, then, end up winning a 4-3 the next game. They're just an extraordinarily inconsistent team when it comes to their defense. So what players could I see as causing trouble? Maybe if they put in a defensive midfielder, it could be a bit difficult for us. They will have to put someone on Harry Kane, like us, most teams do. If they don't, I think they'd be silly to. So that could be Evans or maybe a Fofana, but I just don't really see that defense being nearly as good against us as other ones. And in fact, I would think it'd be the attack that we should be probably a bit more worried about. But let's move on to how can Spurs win this game, everybody. Let's go to Spurs' formation. With Spurs, I imagine the only big change is Sessegnon. And then with Emerson coming in, I just think it's just going to be the same way. I think it's just going to be the same thing with Emerson coming in. I don't see him switching it up. And Sessegnon is available with Reguilon being out potentially for a long time, which is a big shame as well. I just don't see things changing very much. I don't really want to talk about it because I want to keep this a bit more kind of snappy, a bit more kind of quick. But we do have a message from our sponsors over here at the Irish Hotspur and over at Stats with Jack. It is a Manscaped sponsor, everybody. So let's check out the video. If you haven't seen the video, really do have to watch it, everybody. Absolutely glorious. Do check it out. Fellas, sit down and listen up. We were all over the place out there, and there is hair everywhere. This is the biggest battle of your lives. We are in hell right now, gentlemen.
Now we can stay here and hide from our hair below, or we can get Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0 and do something about it. Fight back 1 inch at a time.
Now I can't do it for you, but I look around and I see your faces, and I see the shame, I see the guilt, I see the embarrassment.
But thankfully, we at the Irish Hotspur have teamed up with Manscaped to help you inch by inch, pube by pube.
We know when you get old in life, hair grows and grows and grows. It's a natural part of life, minute by minute, day by day. The pubes, they just keep on growing and growing. Not only on the crown jewels, but the hair grows in your nose, in your ears as well. We also know, though, that life is busy every minute, and every second counts. And it can be easy to neglect yourself, gentlemen. But you will find out that in life, if you don't love yourself, no one else will love you. And that is life. And life is a game of inches.
Manscaped is crucial, and the margin for error is so small for the inches we need. When you add up all them inches, that's the difference between giving someone a good time and giving someone a time they will never, ever forget. So on this team, we fight for that inch.
And we use the weed whacker for that inch. And we use the plow 2.0 for that inch. And we use the lawnmower 4.0 for that inch.
We know, once we add up all them inches, that Manscaped is the difference between winning and losing. Between going home alone or going home with someone.
On any given night, it's the guy willing to die for a hairless body who wins that inch. And then I know, if I'm going to have the best chance at life, it's because I am grooming for that extra inch.
Because that's what living is, gentlemen. It's that 6 inches in front of your face. But tonight, look at your partner. Look at them in the eyes. They will see a guy who's willing to go that inch for them.
They will see a guy who's part of the Manscaped team. And that guy, that teammate, uses the ball reviver and he uses the ball toner to achieve that desired finish for them and for you. Because you know, when it comes to it, they do the same thing for you. That's what a team is, gentlemen.
The moral of the story is that in life, inches matter. So trim that bush. Let's get after them pubes. It's Manscaped, guys. That's all it is. Now what are you going to do?
Life is a game of inches, everybody. Let Manscaped help you out with that. And everybody as well. Manscaped, they also want to say that the start of spring also marks the start of Testicular Cancer Awareness Month in April. Manscaped has partnered with Testicular Cancer Society to bring awareness to testicular cancer, men's health, and early cancer detection. Manscaped is committed to raising awareness for the most common form of cancer in men's aged 15 through 35 and giving support for fighters, survivors, and families impacted by testicular cancer as part of their We Save Balls initiative. As well, everybody, as I'll say again, get 20% off using that code FLATCAP. Get free shipping as well on all the Manscaped goodies. Really do thank Manscaped for sponsoring this episode of the Irish Hotspur, as well as Stats with Jack. But let's move on, everybody, to how can Spurs continue to win this game? And we did put out the lineup there, but now we move on to the unsung hero, Hojbjerg, being rumored with a move to Newcastle. They're very interested with bringing in the player. If that were to happen, let's see what we would be missing. We would be missing a player with the most tackles and interceptions in the entire squad, most successful pressures in the entire squad, most passes into the final third, which really shows his creativity, most progressive passes, which is a pass of 10 yards or more forward to the opposition goal, most ball recoveries, which is a loose ball recovered, in any area of the pitch, most shot creating actions, and in terms of he's actually third in terms of shot creating actions, just behind Kane and Son. Really just speaks to Hojbjerg's creativity, brings that defensive edge, brings that passion, brings that creative edge as well that people don't like to talk about. And also, I just want to maybe quickly show a video on Hojbjerg's kind of like passing that maybe we don't want to talk about, because that pass that Emerson played, I think, to Kane against in the Brentford game, was actually came originally from a Hojbjerg pass in behind to Emerson, which led to probably one of our best chances on the match, to be fair. You look at Brighton, that moment when he actually was able to skill past that player with that beautiful, almost kind of Cruyff or Zidane turn when he really looked at it. And then he played that ball across the six, to which Region couldn't put away. So Hojbjerg, in fact, has actually been one of our most creative players the past few matches. And don't really like the disrespect that I'm hearing sometimes when people talk about him. But let's talk about Sonny instead. But yeah, that's what we'd be missing if we were to sell Hojbjerg. Sonny, though, I think we have to talk about how creative he's been this season. Most goal contributions, of course. Most key passes, though, completed, which is a pass that leads directly to a shot. Most passes into the penalty area. Most shot creating actions. Most carries into the penalty area, which shows how direct he is in comparison to others. Most carries into the final third. Sonny, I think, has been excellent this season as sort of in those creative areas. He's been sort of a striker as well as kind of almost like a creative number 10. He's been asked to do kind of a lot of different things, and I think he's doing it exceptionally, which is why his creative numbers are so high this season. But everybody, what do you think of Sonny's creative numbers? I think they're actually probably a lot better than they were last season. I haven't checked up on it, but maybe I will when we actually look at player ratings and whatnot at the end of the season. But I imagine Sonny's being asked to do a lot more than maybe he was asked under Jose, and I think he's actually stepping up to it. But let's go on to the threats. Kane stepping up. This one is just really just Kane, getting a goal, against the run of play, or just, grabbing a goal when we need it, especially maybe in the early in the game when the nerves are a bit there. What I want to see is Harry Kane grabbing a goal when we're kind of looking for, that edge, that player that can, grab us that, breathing room. And I think Harry Kane needs to do that. Doesn't really need to be anything special. That's what I'm kind of going for. It's just kind of a slip pass to Kulusevski. Harry Kane takes it on his left, continues to take it on his left, and just buries it. I'm looking for Harry Kane to get us a goal that really just gives us a bit of breathing room, especially in a game where there's going to be a lot of pressure and there's going to be a lot of nerves, especially from the fans. But Harry Kane, always been a threat, always will be a threat. But let's move on to the next one. Which is actually an old one as well. Let's just see just quickly with it. I think Harry Kane's just kind of running the show. That's really what I'm just trying to show here. It's just him, when he picks up the ball in these sort of deep areas, he can just run the show. And I think that's pretty much just all it is. But that's just an old one as well. Of the last time we did stats with Jack. Sonny getting things started. Kind of similar sort of message, where Sonny, we want him to kind of, just grab that goal, when the nerves are there, grab that goal, maybe when things haven't been getting going. But this one is actually a bit more unique than maybe Hurricanes, where Sonny, I think, had really good link up play against Brentford, lots of flick ons, lots of kind of 1-2s, and whatnot, lots of first time passes that I really liked. And I think that's what we could see maybe from Sonny against Leicester as well, just to prove a bit of the doubters wrong. And we'll see a bit more of a creative Sonny. That's what this goal is really just trying to show. It's just kind of Sonny just running the show almost through the middle thirds of the park, or the final third of the park. And then he just eventually picks up that pass as well to eventually put the ball away. Sonny certainly needs to be that creative force for us, because we just need somebody to get it going. But someone else, in that similar theme that could get it going for us is Christian Romero. And I think actually out of all of our backline players, he's the one that's been playing the most dangerous passes of our entire back line. The comparison to Dyer takes like 5-8 touches on the ball, eventually just plays it sideways. Davies maybe better than Dyer in that regard, but hasn't played any passes of any consequence that I remember. What I really have liked about Romero is that when he's picked up the ball, he finds those passes that or other center backs can't. He also plays those dangerous passes into players like Harry Kane that other players maybe won't. And I think he does a really good job about it. And he's probably not being recognized for it enough, because he did this sort of pass that we're showing here with this animation against Brentford. It led to a really good chance. Just Harry Kane couldn't do really much with it. But I want to see Romero doing more of this. And I also want people to maybe recognize that Romero has been playing these passes these last few games, especially to get things going. Let's move on to players to target, everybody. Tielemans, certainly, I think just because he's played so many minutes already this season, hasn't had the best of seasons, always hasn't been the best defensively. Just someone to target, especially if you were to play this game. Schmeichel had a really poor post shot expected goals last time we came up against them. Maybe that's improved, but I just feel like he's had a few howlers this season and could be capable of more. James Madison, a good player, but defensively, if he's being asked, to do things defensively and maybe is expected to do it, will he actually come through with it? Not really sure, and I don't expect him to really press us or really cause us too much trouble either. Expect him to be almost a bit of a liability defensively for this one. Key battles: Emerson against Harvey Barnes one-on-one. The dribbling ability of Harvey Barnes coming up against the defensive ability of Emerson, which is really lacking confidence, is just a recipe for disaster. Harry Kane against Sumare and Evans. One of them is probably going to be man marking him. Uh, Either or could have success, but also find trouble. It's just one of those guys will be coming up against Harry Kane and man marking him. So that's why it's a key battle. And then also as well, Hojbjerg and Rodrigo Bentancur against Dewsbury-Hall and Tielemans. Dewsbury-Hall and Tielemans, very good tempo setters, know how to run the show. But Hojbjerg and Bentancur have come up against probably tougher midfield battles. Will they be overwhelmed this time? They might be overwhelmed by the progressive and technical brilliance of those two. But apart from that, I wouldn't see them, losing the ball to them too much because they don't work very hard. But that is the end of Stats with Jack for this one. Everybody, do hit that like button on your way out. Do grab that membership at these sort of shows and whatnot that we put out. We put out lots of different content. If you really like this channel, do grab that membership to show us a bit of support. But as always, everybody, come on, you Spurs, and in Conte we trust.